Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is James Ramos from At the Quarter Pole, and here are my 2025 leading contenders leading up to the Breeders' Cup. And the race I would think that would be very interesting right now would be the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And the Breeders' Cup Sprint, the horse leading in this division would be no other than Patch Adams after winning his last race. Very scintillating. As a 3-year-old, he shows much the fastest pace of all the Breeders' Cup Sprint horses, and only as a 3-year-old, he's got those young legs. And right now, he is a prohibitive favorite. My fair odds on Patch Adams would be 5-2. Other horses in the division that would be tough, and we'll also book him down to win the Vanderbilt Stakes at Saratoga, and he's about 7-2. Mulligan would be about 6-1. He came in second to Buckham Dano right now. Other horses that could be in this race, and believe it or not, I would say that Raging Torrent fits better at this race than he does at the mile, the Breeders' Cup Mile. And the reason why I say that, ladies and gentlemen, because that's a two-turn mile, and Raging Torrent is better as a one-turn miler. He got the worst of it last year coming out of the one hole. He had all the outside speed looking onto the inside. Hopefully that's not a repeat of this year, but I would run him at the 6/8 of a mile than the mile because it is two turns. Stamina wise, Rage Torrent will do well coming off the pace, and maybe will hook the speed late at the last 16th of a mile. Depends where they want to go with this horse, but I think the wiser move would be the 6/8 Breeders' Cup Sprint more than a mile. And that's what I have for my leading contenders right now. I know it's early, ladies and gentlemen. This is my first video on the Breeders' Cup, but we only have 3.5 months away, and everybody probably saying it's still a long time to go. But I'm already starting it out because they're already doing the pre-qualifications of the Breeders' Cup races for about a month now. So this is my first video on Breeders' Cup horses leading up to the Breeders' Cup. The mile race, since we're on this right now, would reach Raging Torrent. My audible from the sprint to the mile, it does make sense, especially though it's a mile race. And Raging Torrent has no problems winning at miles. This will be second mile that he's won. The last was the Met Mile, beating White Umbario, Fierceness, and Just a Touch. And that was an exceptional race with all that quality. It was a short field, but with a ton of quality. And does Raging Torrent want to go two turns? Ability wise, he could go the mile distance, but the two turn for some reason just seems tired. What I call late sprinter horse. He's a tweener. There's a lot more tweener horses now than I've ever seen in the past. If it comes out, it would be a less harder race to come into the race to run at the mile than it is at a Breeders' Cup Sprint. That it does make sense, but there is also a possibility that Mike Rapoli might send Mindframe into the mile then the Breeders' Cup Classic. Now, he could also audible ball from the Breeders' Cup Mile to the Breeders' Cup Classic. That would give Mike Rapoli Stables a double shot, and it could run both as a multiple entry with Fierceness. If I was Mike Rapoli, which I'm not, or the owner of the stables, I would definitely run Mindframe in the mile and have Fierceness as running at the mile 1/4. But everything else, I'm not the owner of the horse, but this is what I would do. And for the Breeders' Cup Classic, it's going to be a phenomenal race. If they get Mindframe in, Fierceness, White Umbario, Sierra Leone, the list goes on. Mindframe, again, mentioned again, Sovereignty and Journalism, and maybe, just maybe, Forever Young. That put 8 horses that are tremendous potential for one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Breeders' Cup Classic we ever seen, even better than one in 1998. That horse like Arch and Coronad's Quest, Skip Away, Swain, Silver Charm, and that whole field in 1998 was one of the greatest. And also the winner who won the 98 Classic was Awesome, again, ridden by Pat Day. It's been almost 30 years ago since we had a classic as good as this one. Right now, if all horses stay healthy to the race in November, we one of I would say the greatest Breeders' Cup Classic of all time. Even for mention the 1998, 1988, which was won by Alashiba, or 87 when Alashiba lost to Ferdinand at the wire, where the 2 Kentucky Derby runners were running in the Breeders' Cup Classic at Hollywood Park that year. So my take on that early pick, I know everybody thinks I'm a homer, but right now Forever Young is healthy and he's ready to come alive. That'll be my pick. He won the Saudi Cup, beat Romantic Warrior at that time back in, I believe it was late February. Right now I had Romantic Warrior and Forever Young 1-2 in the best horses running. I know that wasn't in the United States, and now as times changed now, Romantic Warrior had failed his last race in Dubai, and Forever Young came in a dismal third in the Dubai World Cup. And Mindframe now could be arguably the best horse in the United States in training right now. Now Sierra Leone is supposed to run into Whitney. He had a great race in that Stephen Foster. It was a great race because he made an early move at the 4/8. He had to get the horse into contention. The rider moved a little bit too early on him, but he still showed resolute down the stretch and only lost to Mindframe by a half a length. It shows two things, ladies and gentlemen. Mindframe in that race had the catbird seat sitting right behind First Mission. First Mission gave out with the last furlong, and Mindframe took advantage of that. But Sierra Leone, if you look at the race replays on that, was moving resolute, and the horse for sure wants to go a mile and 1/4. Will he repeat from last year's Breeders' Cup Classic? I highly doubt it because I don't see the fractions going to be 22 and 44 like they did last year. There's no way. Fractional time is going to be 23 and 3, 46 and 4, 47 and 1. Sierra Leone will definitely be able to close at a mile and 1/4 in that race, but it's not going to be any wicked pace like last year. I just don't see it, ladies and gentlemen. This pace of the race could be Mindframe. White Embargo likes to stalk, so does Mindframe. But if you had to look right now and say who would be the speed of the race, would be Mindframe without seeing any other horses. Sierra Leone's going to come off the pace. Skippy Longstocking was supposed to run in the Stephen Foster 1 1/8. I think he will relegate back to the mile race where he's much better as a miler than he is at past a mile and 1/8. I think against top quality, Skippy Longstocking takes a step back past a mile and 1/8 into a mile and 1/4. So White could set the tone and let them eat dust. Now, White does his best running at Gulfstream Park, as we know, but he did win at San Anita Park in 2023 against a decent field that year in Breeders' Cup Classic. But that field that he beat in 23 will not be anything like this year's Breeders' Cup Classic if everybody runs on November 1st, which is Saturday. So that'd be one heck of a classic. I'll repeat, Forever Young, if he comes back to the United States, will, I think, my opinion, that he'll win the race. Sovereignty and Journalism as my late exacta contenders. That is right now, as of July 20th, way early. I know that, but if something happens, a horse gets sick, and explained before in many of my videos, if horses get sick or they don't make the race, then I'll change what I like. But also this, I've never seen at two good 3-year-olds as a way Journalism and Sovereignty look. And I did post a video of my Jim Dandy just yesterday stating how much ground Sovereignty and Journalism move in the last less than 1/8 of a mile to about the 16th. And like I explained before, for 3-year-olds, the only horse I have seen in the past that have run make up that ground was Zenyatta. Just eats up. They both eat up the ground that Sovereignty and Journalism the last 16th, because honestly, Journalism looked beat in the Haskell. Gossiger ran their best horse. That's his best race, and so goal oriented. But boy, oh boy, the way they eat up that ground, it's going to be one heck of a Breeders' Cup Classic. On now to the Breeders' Cup Turf. A horse that caught my eye just about 3 weeks ago is a horse called Ombudsman, owned by Godolphin, and Godolphin might have a double barrel in this race. It looks like Rebels Romance is in peak form again like he was last year, and he might be better this year than he was last year when he won last year's Breeders' Cup Turf. And that was such a good race because he made his move at the half mile and took the lead and held for another mile out to hold down the lead and win the race. So he might be better than he was last year, but the field with Ombudsman, both owned by Godolphin, and Ombudsman looks fantastic, winning out in Europe last start. A horse that also might have a shot in the Breeders' Cup Turf, but he looks like he's a tweener horse between the mile and 1/2 and the mile, was Andre Matisse. Andre Matisse knows he likes Del Mar after winning the juvenile last year, and he came in second in the St. James Place behind Fields of Gold. With about 2 furlongs left, coming down in the stretch, Andre Matisse had bumped with another horse. It knocked him off the stride. But if you look at that race, Fields of Gold had an open lead, but Andre Matisse was cutting down that distance resolutely after again bumped with 2 furlongs left. I have to look at the video replay on that, but it's true. He bumped out, didn't lose his stride too much, but he did lose stride and momentum, and he's going to be tough. Now, where would I run this horse, at the mile or the mile and 1/2? And that's up to Aidan O'Brien. I think the horse is a better at a mile and 1/8. There is no mile and 1/8 race for the Breeders' Cup, he's going to have to dictate either mile and mile and a half. He might be better at the mile and a half, giving a shot to try to run against Ombudsman and also Rebels Romance. So that's the turf on that. Now going to the Breeders' Cup filly, 7/8 of a mile sprint, and the course that were really good this time last year in 2024. This time exactly last year, ladies and gentlemen, is a horse of any by any ways and means, and also Vava. Vava looks more impressive visually. And that'd be my pick for the race right now after winning the Chicago Stakes at Churchill Downs. And he came out firing, got challenged for almost 3/8 of a mile, so 3 furlongs, came around and held sway against horses that were moving in race. Wasn't the greatest Chicago Stakes, but his resolute and the way he won was very professional. The 6/8 of a mile time was 108 4/5, blazing for Churchill Downs. That comes down to, if on the West Coast track, comes down to about a second faster, so 107 4 and 4 for 6/8 of a mile, 107 4. And that was a 7/8 of a mile race. Vava is my pick right now early. Now we got to remember, by ways and means, and Vava went south under form going into Del Mar last year. Could this be a repeat? It can't be right now, ladies and gentlemen. It might happen, it might not. Now, if I was the trainers at both horses, I would change maybe how to come into the race, maybe change a little bit of my format, maybe have a little bit fresher. They both lost to Soul of Angel. That was my pick last year, my long shot pick for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Sprint. This year, I do like Vava by any ways and means. By any ways and means has the top speed figure of 111 when he ran that race out in New York, and Vava ran a 108 in the Chicago Stakes at Churchill Downs. But visually, seeing the race, I like Vava's chance better over by any ways and means right now. Is it going to be another horses? Of course, Scylla is still preparing to come down in his last race. He hasn't been getting the best of trips. Watch out for Scylla. He ran better than those two in November, but we have to see how he's progressing in the race. So that is my video update for right now. Leading Contenders is July 20th, 2025, still 3.5 months away, but what I have seen in replays and videos and horse handicapping on FanDuel and visually seeing and handicapping these races, these horses I'm watching right now. Yes, it's early. I'm jotting down the information. When Breeders' Cup comes around, I'm not going to get ambushed and said, I don't remember this horse or what race this was. So I'll be making my notes of. I've already started right now in visually notes and writing down of what I see. So also, let me not forget the Breeders' Cup distaff. I almost forgot, ladies and gentlemen. Torpedo Anna looks tough. And everybody said, oh, he didn't have to tell us that. He bounced back from his last race and won impressively. Raging Sea, who I liked last year, but faded that horse because of the second choice, ran out of the Chuvy. He's pace compromised, but he wasn't running against the best. And I think this horse seems like she runs in spots a lot. One day she's fine, the other day she doesn't run so well. And I hate to be all chalk and right now, but right now Torpedo Anna into this looks like a lone lock right now. Will that change? Of course, I'll change, and I'll give you videos and I'll give you the reason why it has changed. But right now, at this time frame, Torpedo Anna looks like the best filly, and she has been since last year. I mean, that's not even a wise guy pick. That's just amateur handicap in 101. But if I see a long shot or I see a better play, will I fade it? No, I'll still use him. Any horizontal bets, but if I'll let you know who my live long shot, if there is any live long shot for that day. If I see Raging Sea, I think she's going to have to turn around her form. She didn't have any excuse, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't the hottest pace in the race, but she wasn't running against anything too good in that race. I saw Leslie's Rose won the race. She had been off the shelf for a little bit, and she just didn't have any kick. That is Raging Sea coming down 3/8 of a mile. So let me think about it. Yep, that's my video right now. I'll have more information once I get more information in other divisions, the Breeders' Cup Sprint Turf, the Mile, the Filly Mare Turf Mile, and so on and so on. Still waiting on more of the Euros trying to get geared up. Are they going to make a late move maybe in the next couple of months? We'll see what happens. But that's what I'm waiting for, is the European contention ready to saddle up and try to do what they normally do best, and that's win on the turf. And this is James Ramos from At the Quarter Pole, where winning and history run neck and neck. Have a good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.